Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking installment of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Built in Colorado series, or the RADO, as I like to abbreviate it now, because, color is just too much effort. But with me on the line is the founder and CEO of Reciprociti.com, Stacie Allyn. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I love your show.
Cool. It's a privilege is really all mine. I think you're doing some amazing stuff also, and you've got quite a diverse and interesting background too. So love for you to just introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners around the world who haven't heard about you and the amazing stuff that you are doing. Kick us off with that and maybe touch on a bit about the origin story to Reciprocity.
Sure, sure. Awesome. So I am the CEO and founder of Reciprocity, and Reciprocity is a HR tech company, groundbreaking. What we're doing is we're bringing very simple, efficient technology to the workplace giving gift matching space in corporate America. So until Reciprocity, we're launching right now, and until Reciprocity came along, our competitors in this space have just mostly been focused on Fortune 500 and global companies. And their offerings for CSR, to assist your company with their social good goals and CSR goals, they're super vast, just extremely large. So I'll set this up kind of in a pictorial way for you. Our competitors are fantastic. They're great at what they do. They provide, honestly, Reciprocity a plethora of analytical data and research that is hugely helpful for us and for our clients. So, I have nothing but the utmost respect. I just firstly want to be clear on that. But they have like a semi-truck load of tools and offerings for your company to consider. And again, they're really geared for global companies, Fortune 500 space. And what Reciprocity has done is recognize the need for more opportunity for social good and corporate social responsibility programs, that it needs to be brought to the middle market space and the small market space. We've really addressed removing the barriers to entry for small to medium-sized companies, and we're particularly going after, working with this 500 to 5,000 employee space. It's completely underserved in the CSR space by our competitors. So what we've done is we've extrapolated the most impactful employee engagement social good tool from the semi truck. And we brought that into Reciprocity and said, we're going to perfect this. We're going to make this awesome, engaging, simple, affordable, inclusive, confidential. So we're going to add all these modern workforce values to it, and we're going to roll that out because that's what the small and the medium market space needs. And so that's what we're doing.
So, where did this journey begin? Because obviously, you were a CPA for 25 years. You were a partner in a firm which got acquired. You've done lots of M&A experience. Why this? Like, what? Talk us
Right.
through. Like, where did
Yeah.
this Genesis idea come from?
Yeah, I'd love to share this with you. So the beginning of this passion of mine and the beginning of my journey on, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out how to do this better, was when I was with a Fortune 500 global company, one of the top three banks in the world. And I was in their executive space, in commercial banking, sales to be specific, sales and implementation and treasury management and deposit and payment solutions. Anyway, so I have all this geeky other background. So I transferred my CPA experience and stuff over there for about 8 years. Had a blast. But anyway, built this business line, beside the point. What the point is that when I was in this space, as an executive, I had this amazing workplace giving gift matching benefit to utilize. And it was only amazing, though, to me and not to most other 95% of the other employees at US Bank. Because, sorry, I just said who it was, the US Bank. I got nothing but grace and goodness for them. But I happened to be heavily vested at that time in fundraising for the Susan G. Komen Foundation. This is about 10 years ago. I lost my mother when I was 9 years old to cancer. And probably since the day after she passed, my one of my life passions and greatest goals was to find a cure for cancer. As you can imagine, it was extremely difficult as a young child to have that happen and try to understand and digest. So my healing process throughout my entire childhood and adult life was always to give back, be that philanthropist, do more for others. My mother instilled all that at me. So I just went way back, but going fast forward now to US Bank, So the Susan G. Komen Foundation at the time was something that I was very hip on and participating in, always fundraising, doing all the runs, thousands and thousands of dollars. And the program at my corporate employer was fantastic for that. They matched it. And so I would raise, 10, 20, $30,000 a year for that nonprofit. The problem with it was there was only a handful of nonprofits that the corporation offered for their employees to be able to participate with. And secondly, they didn't get the word out. Like the word was not out to the workforce, the other 95% of employees, that this benefit even existed. Those two things together frustrated me. That's what started my realistic passion and my adventure, towards, hey, I'm going to fix this space. I'm going to figure out something. So it took me 10 years to figure it out. One thing led to another. The real honesty in the story here is I became very ill a few years ago, and I nearly lost my life, and I had to take a break from work for a couple of years and fight my way back and overcome odds. And this true vision of reciprocity came to me when I was literally in a very, very dark space and things were extremely iffy for my survival. And this vision came to me. It just became very clear to me one day exactly what needed to happen, how this SaaS platform needed to be built, how we could reel in the modern workforce values and engage companies and people in social good that we never have been able to touch before. So that became my inspiration 2 years ago to get well. I'm convinced that, it was really a combination of many fantastic powers of the universe and what you believe in that came together, and here I am. So 2 years later, it's here. We're launching. Our MVP platform is done. We have an amazing advisory board, a couple great employees to start with, and tons of supporters like you, Matt, that are helping us get the word out.
Yeah, no worries. So just on your mom, so obviously, sorry for your loss. Like my mom passed away, like also of just over a year ago. It's a weird thing.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's all good. Well, it's not, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a daily thing. It never
it's
leaves your life,
it never does. But it's interesting where I want to go with this is like, it's interesting to connect with you as a founder in the sense of like your large part of your motivation has got to do with your mom, and like and what she taught you about giving and reciprocity and all these kind of things. And so very much this idea, the motivation behind this startup is personal for you.
Very.
It's not a case of, well, you were working at this. I know you were there, but it's not like you were working at this company and then you saw a gap in the market and you wanted to go and it's not that motivation
so much more
for you.
than that. You're
Yeah.
right. You're
Yeah.
right. And in fact, my company, Reciprocity, our company is dedicated to my mother. There's a nice write-up about my mother on our website. And honestly, there's just never a day that goes by where I don't feel that she's right here with me, making this happen. So I give her total credit. Truly, I do.
Yeah, I understand. Tell me, let's talk about the problem here. So a lot of investors listen to the show and they'll be
Right.
curious to know exactly like how big is this market opportunity. So,
Yeah.
so I know you mentioned 500 to 5,000 staff. How big is this opportunity, would you say, in
Yeah,
dollars?
so I can totally quantify that very simply. So the dollar opportunity is over 1.1 billion. And how that is calculated, that total accessible market, is there are 15,000 companies in the United States that are the size of 500 to 5,000 employees who are either in the tech industry, the finance industry, or the logistics industry. So 15,000 total, 7,500 of those are in those three industries. So that's 7,500 times our annual revenue stream, brings us to that over $1.1 billion opportunity. So it's just huge. And interestingly enough, Matt, we're already in discussions, but in discussions with larger companies who like this solution better than what they are using. They see it as being more engaging, simple, inclusive, more relatable with the modern workforce. So, I'll add one more piece of information. The reason we are currently focused, not exclusively, but largely in the tech and finance sectors, is because those sectors are the highest paying, second to executive management in the US. And also they're full of millennials and Gen Zs who their values, I think I was born a couple years too early because my values are their values. And it's been very refreshing to see those, major representative values come through in the millennials and the Gen Zs. They align with everything I happen to have believed in my whole life. So natural fit, but very cool, that we're able to focus on these sectors early on for early traction, and to make the biggest change. I mean, what we're really doing here, we're doing this at the beginning and the end of the day to give ourselves stronger and better communities and bring more social good to the United States corporate culture, to get employees engaged, and let's strengthen and make our cultures in our corporate American companies better, healthier.
Mm-hmm. So, Stacie, the issue here, is it about employee engagement, or is it about, giving employees better choices around what types of initiatives and programs they want to contribute to? Because one of the things that you said to me was that most companies, if you work for a Bank of America, for argument's sake, they have a preferred set of initiatives or charities. So in other words, that you don't get to choose. It's just like, we have these 5 and this is what we do.
Right.
So walk us through the nuances here, because I think it's quite an important thing. And why do you believe that this is different? Because does an employee really care about where the contributions go through your
Sure.
research and things like that? So
Yeah.
unpack all of that for us.
Love it, love it. Let's unwrap that. So the main purpose why reciprocity is resonating and we're gaining early, quick, impressive traction is because we have a problem out there in, well, you want to focus on US, in the United States, globally, we have a problem in that people are not engaged in their cultures. We have, greater than 50% of every employee base out there, it just doesn't give a rip. There's just not a culture to be engaged to. So the problem is then that's one of the main criteria to keeping employees happy. And when employees aren't happy, they leave, they leave, they leave. They do this, we've all heard quiet quitting, the Great Resignation. This is real stuff. We've all learned to hate the titles because we're just bombarded with them in the media every single day. But unfortunately, it's the pandemic of quiet quitting and the Great Resignation is still healthy and well. So it's still happening. There are still 2 jobs for every 1 job out there, for every 1 person in the United States. It's cooled the tiniest bit in the last 60 days, but not much. So our employers, corporate America, our companies, we have a problem. We have an attrition problem, and an attrition problem is costly. The average cost when you lose an employee, it'll cost you anywhere from 50% to 150% of their annual salary to actually replace them. The more important, if you will, the more responsibility they had, the more connection they had on behalf of your company with your clients, the more it's going to hurt you. And, it has been an absolute revolving door. So attrition's expensive. It's depressing. It's horrible. It's operationally absolutely bizarre and threatening and, everything negative you can think of for a company. So why we're getting early traction is the pain point. The first pain point out there, like why, is because you really need to give your employees the kind of culture they want and the kind of benefit structures they want. And we need to understand that today, our US Census tells us that over half of our entire population, are millennials and Gen Zs. So it's kind of reached the tipping point, if you will. And I think a lot of folks out there, just kind of didn't really think it was going to get like this. Well, here we are. So hopefully I've kind of explained that piece. And so then we move into kind of, okay, what is it? What is it that the modern workforce, the millennials and Gen Zs, what is it that they want? Well, they want to have a relationship, their definition with their employers, a trusting relationship. Their definition of culture has changed our definition of culture. Their definition of culture is, they want work flex, remote work flex, hybrid type options, and they want to have a connection. They want a trust connection with their employers. They want to work for employers that are caring, that are trusting. that give them jurisdiction of their own choice and benefits. So that's why, Reciprocity came along and said, oh, gosh, why has no one done this before? Why has no one taken this workplace giving space, which was approved by the IRS in 1954? Why has no one introduced the concept of donation confidentiality to this program yet? Because we've all been participating in our 401ks, right? Our retirement plans for about 1,000,000 years. And there's not one of our employers that is able to look into our 401k choices where we direct our monies and where we invest them. Not one of our employers or admins has the authority to see that where that money's going. Well, how much sense then has it made, and does it make, that your very personal choices of where your donation, hard-earned donation dollars are going, why should that be open season for an employer to be able to see? It's kind of, the world can be mean and cruel. And let's face it, it's going to be a lot more interesting if you want to know about Stacie Allyn in 5 minutes or less, and your options are to look at my 401k choices where I put my money, or to look where Stacie gives her workplace giving donation dollars to. Hands down, we know, okay? We know what that choice is going to be. And then we also know, because the world's not always fair and kind, we also know that that information then can be abused and used against us. So it has created a barrier to greater participation that should have, in Reciprocity's opinion, been removed a long time ago. So we have brought this confidentiality element to the space in our offering. So all employees in any company, we will not waver on that at all. So we brought confidentiality and inclusivity as our two top values for this workplace giving offering. And that helps you really build fast trust in people. And we do it through payroll deduction, reoccurring payroll deduction, seamless, touchless, super easy. So every time I get my pay stub every 2 weeks, I see, oh, Stacie Allyn, I gave my $50. And look right there, employer matching gift, $50. I get a gift from my employer every pay period. And that does everything to help me appreciate that my employer cares about me, cares about my values, my goals, my wanting to make my community better. They're trusting me and my choice, and it's confidential. So we're super excited about this element of our program. Again, it's just not been done by anyone before, and it's clearly not rocket science. It's just kind of common sense, based on trust, respect, and caring. So I'll wrap it up, Matt, on this piece, we also we have a really simple, great app called Generosity. It'll be on the App Store soon. And we encourage each employee to donate to up to 3 nonprofits at a time, every pay period. So it's super easy for them to get on that app and switch it around. They can switch their amounts around, who they want to give it to, blah, blah, blah. It's so simple. So we're kind of keeping the flex, with them too. We're getting just a great response, about that.
Mm-hmm. So just on the Gen Z thing, is that, and I suppose one of the things that I want to spend a bit of time on is this. A lot of CEOs just wrestling with distributed workforces, policies and models and systems to enable a distributed workforce and grow a culture in a distributed fashion. And one of the interesting dynamics in your case is that you're looking at this whole space specifically from like a Gen Z and a millennial segmentation perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pulled up this report for everybody, but basically it says here like, Generation Z brings characteristics and expectations that you might not expect to the office, and then it unpacks them. Check out the YouTube channel, guys, for the detail on that. But Stacie, I'm curious around what are these expectations, because like I get the product, I get how it works in an anonymous fashion, and I get that it drives engagement and it gives Gen Zs or millennial employees or staff the choice around what types of contributions they want to make, because the expectation is they want the choice, whereas before CEOs of 500 to 5,000 sized companies were not looking at expectations around these Gen Zs.
Right.
They're looking at it holistically and saying, hey, everybody that of my 5,000 staff, like, how do we facilitate a work from home dynamic? They're not actually looking at engagement through donations. You know what I mean? And they're using
Understand.
quite an old dated model to facilitate these sorts of matching or
Mhm.
expectation matching, if you like. So
Right.
what are some of the other expectations that you know of, and that you feel other startup founders, CEOs of, Fortune 5,000 companies, what have you, need to be looking out for in the context of employee engagement and retention and culture?
Right. Well, that was actually a beautiful summary of that space. Thank you for that. So what's different and great, in my opinion, about the millennials and the Gen Zs is they really don't have patience for things that don't work, systems that don't work, paper shuffling. I'll call you back. They have a short fuse for inefficiency because they've grown up with and schooled with and learned with access to absolute total tech efficiency. So their expectations of gratification are accelerated as compared to the older generations. And they, so some of the older generations, they get a little tired of it sometimes. I hear this a lot, like, oh my gosh, they want everything now. They want it yesterday. They don't want to work for it. And I couldn't disagree more. I think they are the Gen Zs and the millennials are extremely capable. And I mean, quite honestly, I think they're smarter than the older generations. They've had the opportunity to learn on these tools that we wouldn't have even dreamed that they existed 20 years ago. And now the millennials and the Gen Zs, they dream about them, use them every day, and they demand that level of efficiency, integrity, and really engagement and fun in their life. So, there's that. So, they just aren't going to play around in a benefit space that requires them to literally, I mean, I'm not going crazy here, fax their gift matching request to their employer HR department and then wait around for someone in the HR department to fight over who's going to deal with this task because nobody wants to deal with it because it's too overwhelming. There's too much paper. So the millennials and Gen Zs just will not tolerate that. The millennials and the Gen Zs also have totally brought to light in the most fantastic way how important corporate responsibility, corporate social responsibility is. And they've clearly made it loud and obvious and bright flashing lights. We want to work for companies who care because we care. We have, up front and center social good values and we want purpose. We have purpose. And if we're going to work for you, we want to feel purpose there too. And purpose means for us social good. In addition to loving our job, being into what we're doing, not working in a crazy place, with a bunch of inefficiency. But those are really the key elements that are making these generations different from other generations. And I happen to think that those are good qualities and values. Right now there's all kinds of statistics and reports. And again, I've thanked our, sister competitor companies in the global space for much of this data because they invest millions and millions of dollars to keep this data current. But, it's interesting that workplace giving, I can tell you right now, it's a completely underutilized, underperforming benefit offering. So we're changing that. But still, even given all of that, it was up 8.1% last year over year. And already this year to date, even with all the uncertainty and the chaos that's going on, it's up another almost 7% year to date. So, this is absolutely representative of the push from the millennials and the Gen Zs saying, we won't work for you if we don't feel that you share in our definition of a healthy culture, which is I want you to understand and respect my purpose. I want you to help me have greater purpose. And I want you to believe in bettering our communities like I do.
Mm.
That's really where it's at. And again, of course, I'm over here, you can tell, jumping for joy because it's all the things that I've believed in my whole life and have worked towards and for and, to engage with, etc. So,
Yeah, it's an interesting space to really think through, isn't it? Because I've got
it
a client out in California, and they're like adding 15 people a week or
is.
something crazy. Like and they and a lot of they, along with other CEOs, are really battling with this this talent war, if you like, because
Yes.
to your point, quiet quitting, you know what I mean? Like, and there's so many jobs versus available candidates, and the higher up the totem pole you get, the rarer they are. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
and so to resolve this talent problem is a really acute issue. You know, not only from a distributed workforce perspective and how you foster and grow culture in that type of context,
Right.
but even just to win. Like, you know, if you have a marketing manager, for instance, or a vice president of marketing or sales, what have you, like they're interviewing you as much as you're interviewing them, because if, like, okay, you don't want to make me the offer, cool, I've got 9 other companies just like you who I can go and work for.
Mhm.
And I suppose having something like what you have built, like an initiative, or or a technology partner like yourself, that can provide them with a point of difference in the story, right? Because it's like, cool,
Exactly.
you want to be the most innovative financial services company in the world by 2030. Okay, cool. You and then 50 other companies just like you in California. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I
And so
totally.
and so having something like, well, hey, if you work with us, you have this choice,
Mm-hmm.
to make a
Right.
difference, this, and
Yeah.
we care about, like, other, blah, blah, blah. And I think it really creates a change in the story in terms of, like, why should I work for you
Love it.
versus
Yes.
the other 10 companies that look like you.
Totally. You're just spot on with that. It's a differentiator benefit that's new and exciting. And the coolest thing about it is the quick, time to value, if you will. So, reciprocity from the employer implementation side, I mean, it will be done zero to end with implementation in 2 weeks, but will only require 2 hours or less of your, top HR person, whoever's going to be responsible for onboarding the project, and we just do the rest. We co-brand with your company, we engage your employees on your behalf, we just do all the lifting. And I learned all about that, and became very obsessed with making this offering exactly what it is, where it's HR light on the employer side, so nobody has to go hire more people and all that, and they get to immediately then enjoy this engagement value. They get boasting rights. So the employer gets boasting rights in their marketing platform. I mean, I could go on for 3 days about all the bragging rights and the fun, things that can happen there. So you got lots of good to talk about all of a sudden, and your employees are behind it because they're participating, so they're digging it. And on the employee side, again, you do get that instant gratification. My very first paycheck that I donate with reciprocity, because you let me and I'm participating, you're already helping me. You're already helping me support, purpose that I feel strongly about. So it is a game changer. It's a differentiator for the companies that are jumping into the space now and really embracing social good and corporate social responsibility in a more serious and focused way. There's so much that goes on out there now, Matt, in the space. They're fundraising campaigns. So Giving Tuesday is a great example. I love Giving Tuesday. I've always been big Giving Tuesday, you know, princess out there. I dig it. But that's just a tiny piece of it. Why can't Giving Tuesday be every payroll that's Tuesday? It doesn't have to be one Tuesday a year. We can do better. We can do more. And we can do it simply. The Giving Tuesday campaigns that employers run, I mean, they get really complicated. That's fine. I don't want them to stop running their Giving Tuesday one-off campaigns, but we want them to think about, what if you did this all year long? Have you noticed how happy your people are for Giving Tuesday? Why don't you reel that in and make use of that more so, by having this reoccurring giving and this reoccurring reinforcement of purpose and respect for your employer and trust. It's really good stuff.
Hmm. So you've just closed your funding round recently. Curious to get your experience in terms of funding and raising money for Reciprocity. How hard was it in the market, or with the market being the way that it is right now?
Yeah, it's been grueling, to be honest with you. It's just been grueling, but it's also rewarding when you get to where you're going, and we always do. So we raised 640,000 prior in a pre-seed round. We raised another very sizable investment. Our pre-seed money, by the way, was all angel investors. So we are just, I don't know, I have so much gratitude. I can't even tell you. I'm so grateful for these people, these true angels in this world. And our second big round that came in is we're now a Kiwi Tech portfolio company, and we are digging it. This is very recent that we've joined them. And so our MVP platform now that was finished by an outstanding firm out of Chicago, Launchpad Lab. I can't say enough good about these people. So we're now moving our MVP over to Kiwi Tech, and they're going to be investing in us over the next 3 years. It's a beautiful thing. So now where we're at, and again, it's sometimes it's less than fun. I'll be honest. It's definitely been the most challenging aspect for me as a founder in this space. It's the first time I've dealt with this space with the fundraising and such, because we're not bankable. Nobody wants to lend money on an intangible asset. So they're like, hey, we love your idea, Stacie, but I'm Mr. Banker, and we're now, once you get your monthly, revenue up above, 50,000 or so, why don't you come talk to us then? Okay, thanks. I won't need you then, but thank you. So thank goodness, for this equity funding space for angels and VCs. So now what we have going on is we have currently open a 500,000. So you don't need that much, so we're up to like 825,000 total. So we're currently raising a seed round of an additional 500,000. And what that will do is allow us to give us the working capital to support, hire, and grow, our base next year, starting really now. We're onboarding people beginning December 1st to start January 1st. So that's our seed round, 500,000. So we're actively raising. We did participate in an outstanding event yesterday with Kiwi Tech, an international global investor pitch conference, if you will, or pitch opportunity. So Reciprociti was one of 6 outstanding portfolio companies who presented yesterday. And if anyone's interested, it's out there, and it'll be on our website soon, our piece. And I think we did quite well. So yeah, we're open now to the additional 500,000 VC, absolutely open to VC, angel. And that we believe that'll get us through most of next year, possibly to the end, but it looks like then we'll go to a Series A round late 2023.
Awesome. So one of the things you mentioned to me when we first met, you said that rural economic development promises never or rarely pan out. What are these promises, and what's the relevance to this discussion of raising capital as a startup?
Right. Okay. I'm just going to put it right out there, Matt, because that's what you expect of me, and that's what I would like from you. So I will share that patriarchy is alive and well in rural Colorado. In the economic development space, if we want to be a little more specific. So Reciprocity had the most disappointing kind of an earthquake shock type experience early on in our startup, which was early last year. And we were wooed with economic development. By economic development in a rural Colorado community, we were wooed away from really the Denver area as our choice startup space, wooed into this, rural space with looking back, pretty lofty promises about funding and revolving loan fund, loan approvals, and equity raises. And quite honestly, when Reciprocity didn't align with the values, or I'll say lack of values, with some of the interested equity investors, we politely declined their interests, and we weren't going to go there. It's so important to us that we have the right underpinning, for our culture and what we're doing here. We can't go backwards. So we've got to have absolute alignment of values and such with our investors, VCs, what have you. So it just didn't work out. So little did I know that we didn't want to accept their equity, but we certainly wanted to move forward on the revolving loan fund side and such. Well, little did I know that, you make a couple of the kingpins mad in the rural space of economic development and your whole deal goes south overnight. So we literally had no reason to believe that our revolving loan fund loan would not be approved. It was $400,000. No reason at all. I mean, we had a beautiful package sent in. Everything was clicking. No, they came back and just said on the loan decision day, nope, Nope, nope. Come back in a couple months. Can you be a little more specific? I said, can you help me understand what really happened here? What's happening? No, just come back in a couple months. I mean, give me a break. So anyway, one thing led to another. It's an ugly story, and it was very hard to stomach. And it was disappointing, but unfortunately, we still in this country have quite a problem with discrimination, prejudiceness, inequality. And some people get it and it's not a problem, and some people still don't. So it was disappointing because I've been hanging out in the non-rural space for most of my career. And honestly, I have never run into this myself. I've run into difficult people and stuff that maybe don't necessarily think that a woman in business is as strong as a man, and whatever. I don't have time for that. I've always just pursued on with my passion, my goals, my visions, and you just walk on by those people. But sometimes they hold the purse strings. That was a big, that was kind of a big over the head lesson for me.
Mm.
But yeah, so needless to say, I ran back to Denver. I put my backpack of tricks on, all my stuff, got my three dogs, and said, I think we'll go where we were gonna go to begin with, and we'll just do this a little differently, and we won't rely so much on this whole economic development network. We'll go a different route. And it's worked
Mm.
out really well. Yeah, tough times though at Ridgemont High. I mean, it was definitely definitely a schooling.
Well, sometimes you just don't know what you don't know,
Very true.
and would or not, it was you felt like it was a good thing to explore, and obviously in the end it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to maybe now ask you about Denver. So I went to a startup event called Sweater. So
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to go to that. I
oh,
couldn't
you
make
did?
it, but I wanted to. I had something, yeah, family come up. I couldn't do it. Yeah, I know it. Yeah, last
It
week,
was
right?
yeah, it was interesting because it kind of felt because it was new. So basically, what I gathered from it, so I'm gonna get Jamie on the show
Right
also.
on. Yeah,
So
I'm connected with him on LinkedIn. I have a ton of respect for how he's making this thing go. I really do.
so his story is or was that getting into a VC fund has historically been really hard to do. And what they've done with Sweater is like anybody who wants to get into the DPI or direct private investment space, they have $500, $1,000, whatever, they can go to Sweater, contribute that, and get access to their network or portfolio of startups, which includes Stonks, which has really done really well lately
Yeah,
in terms of like virtual pitching and that kind of stuff.
right.
And then one of the things that they were also saying was how from from an ecosystem perspective, there's been something missing. And it's like there's workspaces and co-working spaces and accelerators and incubators, and that's really not, it's part of the story, but it's not what really from their perspective gets the startup to go from C to Series A, B, C, etc.
Mhm.
And they've brought into this network a lot of global partners. I forget one of the names now, but it's like global funds bringing, it's like a global network of investors into this ecosystem. Having said that, that's Boulder. That's where that event was.
Yes.
And I was talking to another founder there, and he was basically telling me that they're moving from Boulder back to Denver. And the reason for that is because the costs of accommodation in Boulder, like it's just astronomical compared to like say where I'm at, which is the south of Denver. And so employees they need to be paid more to live in Boulder. And
Yes.
so what's happening is that a lot of founders are choosing to actually move their HQ back down to Denver because
Right.
it's more affordable for staff access, etc. And there's more people living in
Right.
Denver, right? To your point. So, what role has Denver played as an ecosystem currently in terms of your ability to scale?
Right. Well, comparatively, obviously, it's just a huge breath of fresh air compared to the rural environment I tried to launch in. It's been a fantastic support network for us. We have formed real strong relationships with some of the economic development leaders here who um, we're not necessarily utilizing their programs, but we've networked with them and they've been so gracious to us. And I'm specifically talking about like Denver Economic Development, really gracious to us about introing us to, connectors and making very powerful and helpful connections with and alongside us. So that's been huge. I too live south of Denver, and we're getting ready to lease just some office space in the tech center. To be honest, we're going to be a hybrid quasi, we're going to be mostly remote, but we're going to be hybrid. So we project that half of our um, 30 person, that's our kind of our workforce in the next 18 months. We expect to build out to about 30 people. We're projecting that half of those will be completely remote. They will not be in Denver. We're trying to get people in Denver because I absolutely believe in human contact and relationship. And I know that Reciprociti has to have enough of that to make our culture successful, to really have the culture that I'm passionate about, that I'm set on having for our company, which, I'm very, very proud of. So we are going to have some office space. We're going to lease in the tech center, and it is affordable. There's lots of choice here. There's lots of space. I love, I just love the plethora of resources here. For instance, we have this, I'm going to say power legal team. I realize it's a little trite and overused, but I'm telling you, we have superstars, and all of our attorneys are based here in Denver. And I feel so lucky because it means a lot to me to be able to go sit down face to face and have meetings like what you and I are having. I mean, there is just, sometimes Zoom works, the face is great. I feel a connection, but there is always something missing long term if that's the only basis for having a relationship, in my opinion. So me, I like to see, be part of, feel that energy. And so I'm super thrilled to be in the Denver area and have access to those kinds of things more readily and easily. I just feel very supported here. I've run into things in some of the VC spaces here that aren't optimal. I'm not loving it. I don't know what the deal is, but you can only, beat it up. So, do so much to try to get through the door. If you can't get through the door, there's obviously hundreds of VCs. We are HR tech, so not everyone is super interested in talking to us, but there's all kinds of choices. And gosh, it is so expensive out there, right now. And it's sad. Boulder is one of my favorite places in the whole world too. And I frequently go to Pearl Street on Boulder on like a Saturday or Sunday and just walk around and go have lunch and just watch the world go by. Cause I don't know, there's magic in it for me there. I just kind of dig it. It's a great scene. But with the moratorium on building, and there's just so much love for the area and there's not enough space, and it's just always going to drive that cost up and up. And here we are in the most inflationary period of time we've had in 20 years. So it hurts in Boulder. So I get it. I get why. Denver's not cheap, right? People say, oh, Denver's ridiculous. Well, let's face it, kind of everywhere is ridiculous right now, right? I mean, we're kind of all a little out of control with inflation and stuff. But, definitely I'm super just very pleased with the Denver community and the support we're getting, not just from customer traction, but from support. Great group of people. I love going to events and stuff and meeting people. I learn so much all the time and make more connections. And we're all, especially the startup community, Matt, man, we are all here for each other. We want other startups to be successful. It's not about Reciprociti and Stacie. It's about the whole community.
And that's why I do these series based on each state, because it's interesting to hear, face to face, so to speak.
Yeah, I know. Those are the things we can do today. I get it.
It's like, but it's interesting to see what people's different views are, and also like the type of startups based on different states. So like in Texas, for instance, there's totally over, like insane, massive surprise for me, but like a major over index towards like biopharma, med tech, anything in health tech in Texas specifically.
Right.
New York is very much, commercial, financial services, fintech, that kind of stuff. West Coast is like they're changing the world, like.
Yeah, baby.
So it's
Good
like
job.
it's like most of them are really just reimagining the entire space, And
Totally. I just think that's reimagine is one of my very favorite words in the entire English language. I think we do far too little of that. And I think we get a lot done. We culturally and humanitarian wise move along much better, efficiently, help in a helpful manner if we all just kind of got quiet once in a while and really thought about what it could be, more, and then applied it. I just love that.
Just a interesting stat for everybody. So in the last quarter of this year,
Mhm.
$1.9 billion was invested in the second quarter of 2022 in Denver metro startups specifically. It's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
love
money.
it. Is a ton of money, and I do agree with your kind of your analysis, your overview about culturally, the Western United States, we're kind of on a forward trajectory that's different, and in my opinion, more advanced than the rest of the country.
Mm.
We are the leaders, and I really believe that. I mean, I'm grateful as heck that I've been in the Western United States my whole life, and I can't imagine leaving. And I dig travel, and I've been a travel, road warrior for years for work, and I'm always happy to come back to Colorado. I just feel like I belong here, but I feel that same way really in California. I feel that way in Utah, mostly in Arizona, so I just dig it.
Mm. So let's have a bit of fun, Stacie. So I'm going to give you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine and ask you to go back to day one
Oh,
of this startup. If you could do that
yeah.
successfully, what advice would you give yourself about building reciprocity?
Okay, this is a big one, but the answer is really easy for me. More self-compassion. I tell you, I have this ridiculous type A perfectionist drive. My father didn't agree and allow anything less than a straight A report card. And if you got anything less than straight A's, you were grounded, you were this, you were that, you were a loser. So it really kind of screwed with my head, right, growing up. So unfortunately, as much as I've worked on that in my adult life, God knows I've had a few years as an adult. I've worked on overcoming that. But I'll tell you what, this experience, I'm realizing more so recently than I was able to even realize it all the first year that man, I gotta just lighten up on myself or I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna die, but I cause myself a lot of stress, undue stress and worry because I have unrealistic expectations of perfection and overdoing and overworking and da. So self-compassion is huge. And if I were to go back and do it over again, which I will, because I'll do another one of these. I got all kinds of great ideas, but this one's most important to me right now. But yeah, the next time I do this, I'm going to take self compassion. I'm going to have it from day one. I'm going to keep it with me. And I'm not going to have to kind of beat it out of myself over a 2-year period to get to where I am now. So a little touchy feely, I realize, but that's really, really true. And secondly, I will be, and I am now more transparent and open with colleagues and friends, Matt, like you, so that I felt more comfortable in sharing what my obstacles were at the time and seeking that advice, that input, and
Mm.
not feeling like, oh gosh, here you go, you've got to go ask someone because you can't figure it out or whatever. I'm like, again, I would definitely broaden my transparency circle and my advisor circle sooner. Definitely. And we have that now. And I still have to remind myself that I don't have to have every answer,
Mm-hmm.
but that's meant a lot to me. We do have a small but growing board, and I'm so grateful. Our chairman is a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
Chairperson. Yeah, he's a rock star. So
So on the compassion side, so I was chatting to when I went to obviously I was chatting to you. I was in New York the last couple of weeks
right, right.
for a few clients, and I was having dinner with one of my clients. So he's 54. His name's Craig. He runs Granite Warehouse Management Solutions, VC funded, based out in New York. Warehouse Management Solutions, and so he's 10 years older than me. Say,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and he was like, you know what? If because I said to him, I feel like I'm running out of time. And to your point about compassion for yourself, I think time or this illusion of not having enough time is actually a large driver of this lack of compassion or self kindness to oneself as you building these businesses, because by the way, it's actually very fucking hard as you
Yeah,
know.
it is.
um so
Thank
so,
you.
so
Couldn't agree more.
he was like yo, like, you're 43, take 18 years off that because you were at school not working, so you left with roughly 25 years. So he says in your entire career you've been working for only 25 years. You've got at least another 25 years to do whatever the hell you want to do. So you're only like at worst like halfway. And that's assuming, you stop. I mean, with what I do, like it's not really like working with my hands, you know what I mean, or doing weightlifting or whatever.
Yeah.
Where there's a where
Right.
there's like there's a certain time that you have, like that context is very different. But for most entrepreneurs who are building things, there's a laptop, an internet connection, and a brain,
Mhm.
and maybe some capital. And it was an interesting idea that you actually have way more time than what you think you have. Like you think, oh, I should have, midlife crisis, 43, you've got to make it by the time I'm 53 or it's over. It's like, no, like
Right.
it's not over. Like, and another stats another guy shared with me, Mike Sharman,
Mhm.
and he actually researched this, and he basically said most entrepreneurs really find wealth in their 50s. So
Mhm.
you spend, and this another guy, Evan, had coffee with him here in Denver, also a great guy. And his cousin is literally like dollar billionaire. And the billionaire, we were chatting to him, and he was basically saying, look, like for 40 years, you basically just organically getting richer. This is
Mhm.
for most of us. Some are obviously getting rich early, but for most of us, that's not the case. But he says at some point along that journey, like you're 20, 30 years in, maybe even later, and then suddenly you have a liquidity event, and now you're rich.
Mhm.
But most of the time, you are not rich. You have a nice lifestyle, but you're not like able just to kick back and chill.
Right. Right.
Um, and it's interesting, isn't it? If you
It
paint
is.
where you are in your life in the context of time,
Uh-huh.
and you remove the first 21 years where you didn't know jack shit, and in fact, you could probably add another 10 years, because when you're in your 30s, you think you can walk on water and you know it all, but
Totally.
you actually don't.
Yeah. Right.
So really, life only starts when you're 40. So I'm
I
only,
totally
you know what I
agree.
mean? So
Yes. Yes. It's so funny you bring this up though. I'm reading a book right on called Take Your Time. And it's written, I can't think of the gentleman's name. It's this brilliant psychologist from India who's now unfortunately deceased. This book's been around for 20 years, but it's all about exactly what you're saying about you have more time than you think. It's how the choices you make, how you use it, and the fact that you don't know how to calm your mind, and you need to learn to still your mind and give yourself permission to think about one thing at a time. Which, I mean, when I first thought about that, I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be really a really boring fast read, because I probably won't get through the first chapter or two, because I just won't be able to find my way. It's not going to resonate. Oh my gosh, it's making so much sense, and it's helping me still my mind, so that I don't run with everything. I just stay in this space to finish this thought and finish that, and then I'll move on to the next one. I'm not great at it yet, but I'm learning.
hmm
you know
the book's called Take Your Time: The Wisdom
Take
of
your time.
Slowing Down. Yeah, Eknath
Love it. Highly
Eswaran.
recommend it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Stacie, thanks for being on the show, man. It's been a privilege
Thank you,
having you
Matt.
here. And, let's get together face to face.
I'd love
You know,
that. Yeah, I'll get an invite to you. Yeah, let's go meet up for a refreshment or something. I would just absolutely love that.
yeah,
And you're
let's do it.
5 minutes away, we think 5 or 10 minutes. So, I mean, we have love it. Okay. Have a
Alrighty.
beautiful Thanksgiving. Thanks for today.
You too. Thanks, hey.
Okay.
Ciao, ciao.
Uh-huh. Bye.